Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. Right now we have the Anheuser-Busch Sports Marketing Panel featuring Nick Kelly and Michael Zacharias and moderated by Rob DeGisi. As the head of U.S. sports marketing, Nick Kelly is responsible for leading more than $250 million in sponsorships, inclusive of league, team, and venue deals with the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, NASCAR, the PGA, UFC, soccer, and college sports. Nick continues to lead a refreshing perspective to AB's sports entities to rework, revitalize, and position the Brewers brand sports properties for growth. Michael Zacharias is the Vice President of Sales for the Northeast region of Anheuser-Busch InBev. The Northeast region consists of 13 states, stretching from Virginia to Maine and west to Pennsylvania. In this role, Mike has responsibility for the strategy and execution of the commercial plan through 92 wholesalers in the market. Mike also oversees key initiatives, including the Bud Light Philly Philly commercial campaign, the significant growth of 2 local craft breweries, Blue Point and Devil's Backbone, and the establishment of innovative routes to market in metro areas such as New York City and Boston. Mr. DeGisi is a Wharton MBA with over 30 years of sports marketing experience. He is currently a professor of sports business here at Wharton, as well as the president and founder of Iron Horse Marketing, where he specializes in new venture consulting in sports. Without further ado, I'll hand it to Rob.
Thank you, Jake. And Nick and Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank all of you for coming to the Sports Marketing Panel. Obviously, there has not been a bigger spender, a bigger family of brands that has leveraged sports marketing more than Anheuser-Busch over probably 7 or 8 decades, maybe even going back to the origins of Major League Baseball in the late 19th century. So let's start off by talking about the greater vision of why Anheuser-Busch and its brands invest in sports.
Yeah, look, I think if you look at dating back to the early 1900s, like even to, the launch of Bud Light in the early 80s, like sports has played a pivotal role in growing brand awareness, trial, sampling, and honestly, just it's one of those things for us is like we're not car insurance, so we actually can be at a game and enhance the event you're at home or at the game itself by drinking one of our products. So we have the unique opportunity to really be an integral part of the experience as a fan. So we have to be there, and it's how we show up has evolved over the last, every decade. It's just how we're showing up from the biggest sign to the best experience to how we're taking it to social and digital now. And creating full 360 commercial campaigns is what continues to push us forward. But it's one of those things that we're fortunate that our product is so center in this actual sport occasion that we have to be there, and we'd be stupid not to be. So
for the fan, you're endemic.
We are
right?
Endemic, and I think no matter, regardless if your team is good or bad, we're there. I think it's just that your team could be 0-16 and you still are drinking beer because your team's awful, or if your team could be 16-0 and you're drinking because you're happy. We want to make sure that we're there regardless. So it's for us, it's a no-brainer.
But there's more to the overall marketing strategy for Anheuser-Busch than just sports. So how does it fit in when you decide to invest in sports versus you decide to invest in other marketing platforms?
I think sports, for us, I'll talk from the media side and I'll kick it to Z, because at the end of the day, we're spending money to sell beer, period. And I think that the biggest piece for us is that, the most watched events every year, 80 to 90% of them are sports events. It's the one thing that you can't watch on Hulu or Netflix. So I think it's just that from a media marketing standpoint, we're always present and active during the live sports event, have it be either the broadcast or at the event itself. But the biggest piece for us is the ability to take it to retail, because if I can't connect these properties back to the consumer and get in incremental floor space, get the opportunity to create programs at bars and restaurants, it's not doing me any good. At that point, I'm just a fan. So, the ability for Z and his team in the Northeast to take a Eagles partnership, to take a Phillies partnership to retail is what sells beer, and honestly why we continue to invest.
It's very brand dependent too. So, brands like Bud and Bud Light, they match with sports and the sports occasion very well. But then we may be going for other passion points, food and wine, festivals, that type of stuff with a Stella Artois. So it's really what we invest in is really brand dependent in a way too. It fits with the positioning of the brand.
Amazingly, you told me before we came out here that you only have 5 people in your department. So a $250 million sports marketing budget is overseen by 5 people. But then you have the regional leaders like Mike here that are part of that too, and a number of agencies. So could you take us all through the mechanics of how that works?
So look, we don't need a big team. I mean, I think the reality is that the relationship day to day is held at the local level. So, Z's team has a DC has a point of contact that is a DC, trade marketing manager or sales director who owns the relationship with the Redskins or the Nationals or whoever it may be. My job is to make sure we're providing the assets that, in a contract negotiation or the campaigns that can help them win at retail and win in the market. But the relationship is ultimately held at the local level. So in a perfect world, I could have 40 people on my team, one in each market, and they manage a market. But the reality is I need them connected back to the sales unit. And if they're not connected back to the sales unit, working with, the sales team to help drive those initiatives, and it's just a bunch of marketing managers there who are like owning the relationship and going to a bunch of games. So
My team is more the feet on the street. So I have people in DC and Philly, in New York and Boston that are managing the local relationship with the team, running the activations, managing the championship parade or whatever the activation, how we're bringing the brand to life.
Right. And in vast range of complexity too, from Bud Light team-identified cans to just a wall at a minor league ballpark. That's all under your purview.
Yes. So we work a lot. My team works a lot with Nick's team. They're on conference. We talk a lot. My team talks to his team a lot to make sure that when it works the best is when we have that coordination, because then it's working at the high level, but it's also coming through and being activated at retail, and you're getting the most return out of the asset.
Yeah, because when I started like 5 years ago, we had a little fiefdom where it was basically like, oh, we want to be the sole contact for all the teams. We want to be the sole whatever to make sure we can manage those relationships. What we quickly realized is that there was a monopoly of power in the fact that we just wanted it because we wanted to know everything that was going on. And the reality is a lot of the best stuff over the last 2 or 3 years has originated at the local level because they know the market better than we're ever going to know it. So I can't manage a relationship in Seattle, Denver, DC, Miami, as well as the local team can. So there was an evolution for us over the last 2 or 3 years of putting that power back in the market because they're faster, they're quicker, and most importantly, they have the relationships with the retailers and everything else. So,
right. Well, we'll get into some of that local marketing because that's the focus of what we're here today to speak about, especially being in Philadelphia and the natural evolution that took the Dilly Dilly campaign, which is a brand-wide global campaign developed by creative agency Wieden & Kennedy, and then activated here. And I think you'll find when we speak about it, it's amazing how nimble such a big company like Anheuser-Busch can be to execute on something like Philly, which developed over several weeks, but then also executing on something like the Bud Light guy in the World Series in Washington. So we'll talk about that more. Before we do, let's also speak about the origins of Dilly Dilly and the stories, the strategy that historically has been behind Anheuser-Busch. Most of the people in this room are too young to remember Louis the Lizard, although I highly recommend searching Louis the Lizard on YouTube and watching from the start because it is a story, and you'll see how that evolves over the years. And I Love You Man. What's Up was Bud, right? Not Bud Light.
Budweiser, yeah.
Yeah. So, and now you have a new story that's gone on for 3 years now. Can you fill us in on the origin of Dilly Dilly?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think at the time, it launched about three football seasons ago, is when we kicked it off, and it was just a spot. It was one of the spots that we created during the fall campaign that was supposed to play off of the launch of not the last season, but the second to last season of Game of Thrones. So it was supposed to be like a Game of Thrones-esque commercial. And it ran during NFL Sunday for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And there was just kind of a throwaway line of Dilly Dilly in there. And it just caught on. It caught on in social media, it caught on in culture. And so we basically took it, and I give a lot of credit to our CMO and everybody else who basically were like, let's keep with this space. Because we were running generic NFL commercials, and I say generic as in just NFL themed commercials, and we had a zombie one for Walking Dead. We had a bunch of other stuff, and we honed in on the fact that this is working, there is something here, and we carried it on. And at that point, that commercial started running in September, and by November they'd shot 3 more. and then they put a Super Bowl commercial. And like, so it became one of those things that at least, you know, we were smart enough to recognize we had something, and it was, and keep it going. And I think that the biggest piece for us is that, you know, it's actually helped us translate to the ability to take it to retail, the ability to take it to bars, and, you know, to be, you know, one of those things that it could evolve into like a Cheers type moment with Dilly Dilly. We're fortunate, but I was just, you know, fortunate enough to move fast is the one thing that we're good at. So,
Terrific. But not every campaign works out. There's also the, I was reminded of this in preparing for this, the Derek Jeter campaign when you had a lot more runway. He announced he was retiring months in advance. Tell us about that campaign and why it didn't work. Why wasn't it effective at retail? Ultimately, that would be your measure, right?
yeah, look, I mean, I'll give you, I know we're going to Philly, that worked. The reason that Derek Jeter, it worked from a being culturally relevant, and it worked because the content itself was award-winning. What didn't work is the fact that we didn't have the foresight to all of a sudden take it to retail, because we could have done like $2 beers, because the whole thing was like this Bud's for $2. Like,
Right.
there was simple executions that we just did not like put in place because we didn't think about it. And honestly, that was the dysfunction of our department at the time. It was marketing, and it was, the end result was never, how do I connect this to sales? So I think that was the big gap on our side on that one. But it was the first piece of content we did that has led into other pieces of content like Dwayne Wade and Philly and all these other stuff. But it was a big learning curve for us because it was a big gap afterwards. It's like we have all these like great, like, you know, can awards and all this other stuff. But when we look at what the impact was at retail, it did nothing because we just weren't smart enough to figure it out. And, you know, that became the big learning as we looked at other things, is like, how do we connect?
I think for context, my team in New York, we found out about it the week it launched.
Yep.
It wasn't like
Right.
a pre-planned thing that, hey, we can leverage this.
I think we have a clip from it here, right? Saved in the
Have a
deck?
clip of that one?
I don't think we have this
I
one.
don't think we have
We
that
don't?
one. No, I
Oh,
don't think we
okay.
have that one. Yeah.
Okay. Also on YouTube.
Yeah, it is.
The video, it's not a 30-second commercial.
No,
it's
it's
a
like
minute and a
2.5
half video,
minutes,
2.5
yeah.
minute video. Yeah, leveraging two everywhere. They did change.
Well, the hard part about it too is that we didn't have a Derek Jeter relationship, so we had to like basically work with his agent and be like, "Hey, we've got this idea. We're Yankees partners, we're MLB partners. Like, we want to do this like tribute to Derek Jeter." And you know, he's been synonymous for having basically a Nike deal, Gatorade deal, and that's about it. So like for us to step in without an existing relationship was a big effort. But
And you're prohibited from having a relationship with an active player.
No, we can do it now. So this
Now you
year-
can,
this-
yes, yeah.
We at the time we were prohibited, and honestly, that piece alone helped us move forward and getting. If anything, it did for us. It helped us get better relationships with the player associations.
And so you could do it now if you wanted to highlight the success of the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, 100%. So,
Going back to your comment about being 0-16, it might reply to that. When
look, they
you're
still
0-162.
They still sell beer. So
That's right. It still works. That's the beauty of it all. So, but the beautiful thing about that you guys were able to leverage was this Dilly Dilly campaign, the medieval prince, king, whatever he is there. But then the Philadelphia Eagles just really happened to have their best season ever during all of that. The Philly Eagles, as we'll call them. So take us through what happened there.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, Z's actually probably closer to it than I was. I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is that from a national level, we saw the social media conversation of like, you know, the Philadelphia fans are changing it from Dilly Dilly to Philly Philly. So because we saw that, we were able to then like enter the conversation authentically. And, you know, just to even back up before even that started is that, you know, Lane Johnson was like at training camp and he said that, you know, I'll buy all of Philly a beer if we win the Super Bowl. And we jumped into that conversation and said, oh, we'll buy it for you. Like, and at that time, nobody thought they were going to win the Super Bowl, so it's like a throwaway conversation. When they actually started getting good, the conversation became real.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, there you go.
Get a video.
That's Lane?
Yeah, I messed it up. But that was the tweet. That was the
Yeah.
tweet that we tweeted him and said, let's make a bet. So he said what Nick said, which was, man, if we win, I'm going to buy the city of Philadelphia a beer. And we have social listening. One of the guys on the social media team saw it, picked it, and then responded that hey, let's make a bet. We'll buy the beer if the city of Philadelphia, you know, if the Eagles win a championship, which the Eagles were not historically good at that
They
time.
weren't even supposed to make the playoffs because
Yeah.
Carson Wentz got hurt, and we were like, oh, we're good.
It was a low risk. It was a low risk play.
Yeah.
Nick
but I mean,
Foles had something else to say.
100%. Well, and look, and honestly, this is where it's important too, is that like we didn't know how to buy beer for a city. So like, it's not necessarily easy. So,
Right.
Z's team, and he can go into details like, that was like, we literally were at our national sales conference at the time in the room, like in a castle. Like I was in the back of our Bud Light display trying to figure out how are we buying beer for Philadelphia. So it's just.
As it got more and more real, we had to really put some, meat around it. Because it could be a PR nightmare if the city felt like we didn't hold up to our end of the bargain. So we really had to plan it out diligently about how we were going to make that happen in the city.
And I'm sure there were some lawyers on your team saying, can we even do this?
Can we even
Even
do
if we
this?
could logistically do it, can we legally do it? And the PR nightmare doesn't care.
Well, it's easy to buy. Like, you could buy a Coke for everybody because it's not alcoholic. The
Right.
problem is alcohol is so highly regulated, even in a state like Pennsylvania. Like, buying alcohol for everybody is really hard. So that makes it that much more challenging.
Yeah, but you were able to overcome that hurdle. I guess it was okay.
Yes. So they won, and we were in a war room together in Minneapolis at the Super Bowl, making sure that everything was going to get in place. But that kicked off a bunch of events that we had basically planned already with our agencies and had ready to go. I got a couple of things that we did. Actually, this was the play. So this was the go-ahead touchdown score in the Super Bowl, and the play call was Philly, Philly. So
Yeah.
it even ingrained in the team. It's like music to our ears that they're using like our language in the play call. Immediately after the game was over, we already posted that, hey, we're gonna buy beer for the city of Philadelphia. We wanted to not have any bad PR to start with. So join us at the parade. The way we had planned to do it was via the parade. Every time you win a championship, there's a parade in the city. So why not be part of the parade and make it happen? And we also posted in a print ad, explaining how we were going to do it. Go to bars along the parade route, and we'll be buying beers for people. And what we did was 35 bars along the parade route that we set up shop, and we had our let me go forward one. Our brand ambassadors. So these bags are filled with like 45,000 poker chips. There's a picture of one up there. It says "Good for one free beer." And so as a consumer would walk into the bar, they'd get a poker chip. They were able to turn that in at the bar for their free beer, so they got one. And we had our brand ambassadors out there. We had to cover up all the Bud Light logos with duct tape because I didn't want to get them mauled in the street as they were heading towards the bars. But it was an amazing day in the city of Philadelphia, and we only gave out about 35,000 beers. Obviously, the population's a couple of million.
2 million people at the parade.
Yeah, there's 2 million people at the parade, right? And because of everybody that got one was tweeting it, was sharing it on Facebook, it made it seem like it was much bigger than it was. And the other thing we did was we offered in the newspaper that if you can't make it to the parade, if you don't make it to one of these bars, go buy a 6-pack, and we'll scan the receipt, send it to this website, and we'll pay for your 6-pack. So everybody felt, even if they didn't make it to one of these bars, I have an opportunity to get my free beer. Only like 2,000 people redeemed that. So at the end of the day, we only bought 42,000 beers for a city of,
Right.
multiple millions, and the city felt like we bought everybody a beer, which was fantastic.
And what people probably don't know is that Miller Lite has been the official beer of the Eagles for decades. And if you did some kind of awareness schedule now, people would probably think it was Bud Light.
100%.
Yeah, look, I think that's the thing that separates us from our competition is that, like, they could have done this. They could have done a lot of, they could do everything we're doing. When we did the thing in Cleveland with the fridges, when we did this, like, they can do it. We're just faster. We're quicker. We honestly have the sales force to go out there and actually activate it and leverage it. So, like,
Right.
That's one of the things that helps me in my job is that I can go back to the Eagles when they're up for renewal or negotiation and be like, guys, look at all this stuff I did for you. Like, because I think it's usually like look at all the stuff I did for you, as in the partner coming to us and being like, I'm helping you, I'm doing all this other stuff. We actually are one of the partners that help our partners. Like, we actually are going and activating the brand. We're doing stuff that connects with fans, like in a fun, authentic way. Like, we're not just taking from them. So.
Right. Well, that's clearly, that's the best sports marketing, where the marketing helps in both directions. You're certainly using that platform to build awareness of Bud Light versus, because there's 20 different beers available at Lincoln Financial Field on any given Sunday.
Unfortunately.
Use that term. Right, and that's the way it is every place. You're not exclusive, you don't pour exclusively anywhere. The only soft drinks pour exclusively in the venue. But pushing both, McDonald's historically has done a good job of marketing the sport, as well as helping the sport market McDonald's, whether it be, back in my day when I was at the NBA, you had to go into McDonald's to vote for all-star balloting. So the NBA existed in McDonald's, but of course for McDonald's it was driving traffic into their restaurants as well. So that's terrific that you've been able to do that. But you also had, getting back to the logistics of all this, you had a sales force already in play to sign up those 35 bars. You had a promotions company to help with the rebate system at any distributor or any retailer.
Yep.
So,
And it made our customers, who are the bar owners, the liquor store, the beer store owners, it made them all very happy because it brought business to their accounts as well. So it was
Right.
like a win-win for everybody.
right. Now, how long did that last? That was what, February 4th or 6th, something like that?
Yes. But the campaign itself extended all the way until opening day of the next
Take
year.
us through.
So the great thing in working together with Nick's team and the Bud Light team, we were able to have kind of like earned media moments every 2 or 3 months or so. We bring new news that reinvigorated the discussion or brought it back to light.
All throughout the summer.
All throughout the summer. So let's say month or two after maybe 2 to 3 months after the season ended for the summer, we brought Philly cans. So we worked with our logistics team, and all of the Bud Light cans in the city changed to say, instead of saying Bud Light, said Philly for the entire summer.
They
So
were
it was
green as well.
We did green ones. We had green ones. That was the parade. Oh, we sky rode Philly in the sky too. That went viral. We did a lot of fun stuff. That was us in the bars giving away beer. It was we had the Bud Night at the bars, so we had a lot of fun with all that. But yeah, so this is the kind of example of the earned media, right? So you do this thing, you don't spend, really wasn't expensive to do what we did, but every blog picks it up, every news station picks it up, and you're not paying for that exposure. So it's like, it's a huge ROI on the media because you're not, it's what we call earned media,
Right.
Not paying for it, it's coming organically. And so we kept doing these earned media moments. These are some of the numbers, 810 million PR impressions, which is, I think it's similar to a Super Bowl commercial, right? So it's for much less expenditure than a Super Bowl commercial, much less. But this was some of the packaging. So these were blue. We had green ones as well, but we changed it to Philly. So that was this announcement, and so then all the news stations, all the blogs pick up. Oh, Bud Light's changing their name to Philly.
And
for
that
the
was
summer.
when that was done in the summer.
It's done for the summer. So we would
Yeah.
launch at about April, May. So
And
a
there's
few
no
months
intellectual
after that.
property in that either.
No.
Philly is not trademarked by anybody.
Yeah.
Well, it's trademarked by us.
Oh, it was?
We own that trademark now.
Oh,
And
terrific.
then we switched all of our digital boards in the city to say Philly when we launched those. And then when the new season came along, so in the fall in September, we unveiled a statue of the play call. So this is the coach, Doug Peterson and Nick Foles, and it says, "You want Philly," which was the play call you saw in that video. And this is like an iconic piece at the stadium now that everybody goes and takes their picture with this statue. So this launch, again, all the news stations picked it up, all the blogs picked it up. It created another earned media moment a few months after we launched the can. So we kept the conversation going, a full year.
Right. Well, one of the things,
Is it the first time you've ever sponsored a statue like that?
Yeah.
That was a new one.
Yeah, that's a new one for us. I mean, we built the statue.
We
had
commissioned an artist, right?
Some guy who he's out in Colorado who does this thing. Like, we found him and he did it. The hard part for us was that convincing the team to put their coach in an nobody puts a statue of an active player So like, and he wasn't on the team anymore. So it was just like putting that up was the harder sell. And I honestly, it was more of an ego thing, getting them comfortable with the fact that like Carson Wentz is their quarterback and we're putting up the backup quarterback in a statue. So like, but like, yeah, I mean, we're not in the business of doing statues, but like it was actually, you know, it made a ton of sense.
Right. So, it seems like there was just too many things going your way. But at the same time, the lesson here also is you were prepared to embrace that luck as well. I mean, you can't, they were made the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. I mean, I would have died if I was in Minnesota and then you learned that the play they called was a Philly to win the play. And not just any play. It's when the quarterback catches a pass, doesn't throw a pass. It's just too many things going well, but you also make your own luck so that you're able to respond when you're at that right time. So it might not have been expensive as far as cash outlay of 42,000 beers. That's what you invest in every single day in the type of organization you run.
Yeah, and in this instance, it was well planned and well thought out, and that was the beauty of it. Is our teams worked together. That we had after the season started, there was more. We launched a commemorative Super Bowl package, and it was a bottle pack. I got a picture of it here. So we made 2,848 of them, which was the time in the game that play was run. And we sold these things at retail, 2 glasses in a bottle, 24 ounces of Bud Light. 24 ounces of Bud Light sells for, I don't know, $1.99, $1.99 in the store. These are people waiting in line to buy their commemorative package. They had to buy a 30-pack as well to get the commemorative package. That was part of the deal.
You got the commemorative pack for
They
free, or
waited
did you buy the commemorative pack for $49.99?
$29.99
$29.99
was the
for
retail
24
price.
ounces of beer and 2 glasses.
What normally costs $1.99, we were charging $29.99 for. People were waiting.
Margins,
People
that's
were
another-
waiting in line 2 hours at the beer stores to pick one of these up, and then they resold them on eBay for $700. So think about the premium, what that does in terms of like translating this into real results. That we had what normally sells for $2 was selling for $700, getting resold for $700 on eBay.
Commemorative was fall 2018 launch?
Yes.
Yeah. As was that, the graphic you had with the Bud Light, Philly cans.
That was the summer.
That was summer.
After the summer after the Super
Right,
Bowl.
plenty of beer drink in the summer.
Yeah.
You want to take advantage of that, even though it's not football season.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for us is how this is the first time we've ever been able to extend an NFL partnership into the summer. Like we've
Right.
never had that opportunity.
Was that the year also that the draft was in Philadelphia? Or was
The
that the
year
previous? That
after.
was
The year after the
2017?
draft was in-
This-
yeah.
the
2017 was the
Philly.
draft,
Yeah.
along the parade route,
Yeah.
coincidentally. So it's going to be in Cincinnati next year.
No, it's
right?
Vegas.
Vegas, all right.
Yeah.
So no Vegas team. Well, the Raiders will win the following year. Is that what
Well,
that
that's
means?
what, apparently. So
Okay. Good luck with that.
But to the point, this one was luck, right? And to take advantage of the lucky opportunity, you have to be well prepared. You have
Right.
to do things. But we were able to extend this in the future then into things that weren't lucky, right? We picked our own, made our own story out of a story that wasn't there. So this particular one, we kind of, it fell into our laps, let's say. But the idea was then, well, how do we repeat this? And you can't repeat it by, something falling into your lap. You have to be able to make a story.
You can repeat it by something hitting you in the chest.
Yes, that you can do. Yeah.
So,
yeah. But to your point about the luck, I just want to make sure it's clear. It's like we weren't prepared maybe 3 years ago in a position to act like this. Like
Right.
Yeah.
we didn't have the right people in place. We also didn't have the framework in place and the autonomy to go. Like a lot of this stuff that like happened, we were doing without a lot of people knowing because it's
Right.
internally because we don't have that much bureaucracy anymore. So like there's the freedom to just move. And I mean, like we'll talk about the Nationals thing here in a second. Like that, I mean, the approval process was the social media manager calling me being like, "Can you do this?" Yes, and you just go. Like it's just that removing all those layers has made us that much more nimble. So.
right. Speaking of social media, let's just take a step back because Mike, you just mentioned a number of things that went viral. What did you do from orchestrating that from a social media perspective so that it could go viral? There's just so many posts that you can make yourself, but you must have done something strategically that helped that all come together.
There's and you probably know the pieces. There's like, if you combine like 4 pieces of, is the information relevant? Is it does it tie to the brand? Is it buzzworthy? There's like a formula we have. You probably know off the top of your
for
head.
us. It becomes like, are we forcing the conversation or are we like adding to it? And I think that the thing was with Philly, and even with all the stuff that we were doing around the playoff run and everything else, we were a part of the conversation. We weren't driving it, and I think that helps us a lot. It's the same thing. What happens when everybody talks about the Browns suck, or when we jump in the conversation with the Nationals guy, like. It's a conversation already happening. We have an authentic place in the conversation. When we try to, we do it every day. Like we try to force the conversation about something that nobody cares about, it dies. But it's just making sure that you find your lane in the conversation and culture, and you just stay in it. Because the minute you go one step too far out or you push it too far, is when all of a sudden you can get kicked out of the conversation.
Right.
I think that Browns example was a great example.
Let's talk about that a little bit more,
Yeah.
what happened there. Now that's fall of 2018, correct?
Fall of 2018.
The Browns didn't win, were 1-15 in 2017-18?
No, yes.
1-15,
Yep.
right?
And so the thing for us was, we had so much success with the Eagles and Philly running into the summer and running into this. We wanted to do the opposite. We can't just celebrate a parade every year with the Super Bowl champion. So we're like, who's the worst team? And what is that conversation? And the Browns are really, really bad. So it became a conversation about the fact that we're going to celebrate their first win because they won game 3 of the previous season and they didn't win forever. So the whole point was it's a hard sell because you have to get the ownership and the leadership of the team on board for acknowledging their futility, and then basically having them rally around the fact that this is going to be a better year. And it was an okay year for them, but they were confident enough in the fact that, hey, we're going to win, and we're going to win early in the season. So we want to rally behind this and all that. So the ability for us to do the whole lock fridges until you win a game thing. It was originally ideated internally off of the fact that we can't just celebrate all the winners all the time because it's just there's other fan bases. We sponsor 28 NFL teams. We can't keep coming back to Philly. So we have to go to other markets and do stuff. So we literally picked the most challenging team and the most challenging fan base we had and came up with a great concept. But again, we started that conversation by a really novel idea, which is, we're going to lock up these beers and they're going to be victory beers as soon as they win their first game. And the fans of the Browns found it fun and ironic, and this is something we can all rally behind. But it moved the needle. Zeke can talk about what happened in Philly from a market share standpoint, but it actually helped us sell beers, and people were buying their own Bud Lights to make their own victory fridges and putting it in posting it online. That was one of those things that again it helped us. We were better at tying together what is the end goal? Sell more beers. So the reality was this was a product centered around. It was a campaign centered around the product. And that's really what helped us a lot there. So,
Speaking of measuring the impact, before we jump into a little bit more detail on Cleveland, go back about the results as far as market share in at Bud Light and Philly.
So Bud Light, and because of premiumization trends in the industry, health and wellness trends, our core brands have been under a little bit of decline for a number of years. And so Bud Light was down 2% in the year of 17, which is typical for what we would see for Bud Light. And so in the year of 18, we grew 6.6%, which is a massive improvement for a big brand like that. And that grew a share point. So we grew a market share point out of this activity. And for the price that we paid, I would take that ROI every day to gain a share point for the little bit of money that we spent on in the city of Philadelphia.
and look, it makes my job easier because with the ROI game of hey, are these partnerships working for me, and justifying it with our president and ultimately our global finance groups is it's easy for here to say, yeah, the Eagles work. I don't have this story in every market, but this becomes from a partnership standpoint, this partnership is working, period.
Right.
So.
And you just mentioned you're in 28 of 32 NFL markets. Why are you not in those other 4?
Just competition. I think that's our competition is heavily focused on 4 properties. And it's just that we're all about scale nationwide. Let's get as many partnerships with as many people as possible and have the best partnerships. They're very focused regionally on a handful of teams that they're all in on, and they do a good job in those markets. But where we share a team, we're both partners with the Eagles, you wouldn't know that they're a partner with the Eagles. So we'll happily share with anybody because we think we'll out-execute them. But for them, they've picked a handful of properties where they're exclusive and they're all in on it. So.
Gotcha. So then what did happen in Cleveland? Talk about the logistics again, about the locked fridges and how you were able to execute that at retail as well.
So we talked about how bad the team was. Well, I don't. We save the video. The execution of that. So the execution of that was, how many bars were there? About
So it started to 10,
10,
and
right?
it worked its way up to like 18.
where the sales team then placed these fridges that were filled with Bud Light bottles with the Cleveland logo on it. They had a chain around them,
I remember
and
the
they would unlock from a Wi-Fi signal if the Browns when the Browns won their first game. And the Jets are worse than the Browns. If you could find a team that's worse than the Browns, it was the Jets, and they were playing the Jets. It was a Monday night game, right? It was, yeah. And so we had our people all lined up because this was a moment we thought, hey, it may happen, and in these bars, and the way the consumers reacted to this, like waiting for the fridges to open when it happened. And we have a short video that just kind of shows it, explains it all.
The next story combines two of my favorite things, football and alcohol. Bud Light has announced they will give Cleveland Browns fans free beer if the team wins a game this year.
Starting today, Bud Light is installing victory fridges that will be full of beer in Cleveland, 10 Cleveland bars. They're locked. When the Browns win their first regular season game, the fridges are unlocked and the beer is free.
I got some records from World War II. I play 'em just like me granddad do. He was a rocker and I am too. Oh, Cleveland rocks. Cleveland rocks.
Took pressure off the edge. Little trick play and a throw to Baker Mayfield. It's maybe the greatest promotion in the history of promotions. They send out the signal, the chains drop off, and everybody gets free beer.
Open up the coolers, 21-17.
Streets are packed right now.
Did they open the Bud Light thing?
Yes, they do.
Dilly dilly!
And that meant one thing, free beer. Shortly after the win, the Bud Light victory fridges were unlocked at long last.
People scream. They thrilled because the Browns won. And honey, I'm talking for the first time since like Christmas Eve 2016.
Finally, people are enjoying what has been long overdue. Well, now they're empty. Hit him with the tweets.
This is what the Cleveland Police tweeted, Christian.
It was almost like people wanted to leave early from the game just to go to these bars and get this free beer.
So it's as Nick mentioned earlier, it's a perfect spot for our brand because our products used at celebrations, celebratory times. That's one of the occasions, and so it's a wonderful brand fit and created. We had similar results in Cleveland to what we had in Philly in terms of growth of the brand and awareness and consideration with consumers and we kept. That's another example where we kept the conversation going an entire year. We actually opened up a appliance store in downtown Cleveland for the beginning of this season, and we sold the fridges for this season.
Just those 18 fridges.
No, like
All the
hundreds.
fridges. Hundreds.
And we sold out in what, 2 hours or something?
Yeah, we sold out in 2 hours. We created like basically like a fun like 70s era appliance store, and like we had we literally sold fridges, and we had players come by and help sell and everything else. We sold out the store in 2 hours, and then online we sold like $1 million worth of fridges. So like we sell beer, we don't sell fridges, but apparently we sell fridges. So like, but we sold like $1 million worth of these fridges and we sold them at cost because what it was is you bought it and then we basically gave you a coupon to get like a free 30 pack. Like so, the goal is that hey, now you have this Bud Light Browns fridge. We were there for this fun moment. Again, it's a win, but we were there for this fun moment. The goal is they continue to stock it with Bud Light. Like, so
Yeah, they're not
it's
going to stock it with Miller Lite.
no, or Diet Coke or anything like that. So.
No. baby formula, maybe, something
Yeah.
like that, yeah. So, and that was now into the fall of 2018. Now we have 2019. How has the campaign evolved as we head into that? Started the baseball season, March Madness. You don't do much around college basketball.
I mean, for us right now, I mean, the biggest piece is that we haven't done a big one like this year. We've done a lot of really good stuff of activating with players in the local markets this year. So working with teams to do a lot more, like we're investing the same amount of money, but it's more spread out. And I think that the one feedback we've gotten from the regions or and all of our wholesalers is like, this is great for Philly, but what about me? Like, what about me in, Arizona or LA or Texas? So like what we've done is kind of spread the wealth in terms of like the focus we have. And it's done a good job. We're seeing, the goal is that we can see half of the results that Z has in Philly and other markets. It's a win for us. So that's where we're at now. But I mean, look, the biggest piece for us is we did really well with football and we've done football really well, but we've, transitioned to the same type of mentality on baseball. Same type of mentality on basketball and hockey now. Like, we're trying to take what we've done in football and, replicate it other places.
And you certainly have the infrastructure, the mindset, the good feeling of everyone on your team and your extended team through your agencies and whatnot, wanting to. They've tasted victory, literally, and they want to taste it again. So it's all about being ready for that moment. You might have even had that moment with the World Series, with the Washington Nationals. So a lot of people probably remember that. Maybe you weren't thinking about it at the time it happened. So maybe you could just recap a little bit what happened. It was Game 4 or Game 5?
Game 5.
Saturday night. 5 was Sunday night.
5, it would be 5 because then we sent him to Houston. So I'll tell you the start, and then Z's team actually did it on the ground. Is when our guy got hit in the chest, we saw it online, everybody saw it, and they started posting the clip, and then within 15 minutes we'd replied to him and said like, hey, find us this guy. The reality is that we tracked him down through the Nationals, our partnership there, and said, hey, who's this guy? We got in contact with him, and the first thing we wanted to like, one, make sure that he was like, okay. And then two was like, yeah, and then it was just like, hey, we want to reward you for being a loyal Bud Light drinker and like send you to Game 6, and then with 6 turned into 7, and we sent him the whole weekend, or the whole week, which is great. But the thing became is like, it was 15 minutes after it happened, we were already moving. So like, that was the ability. And then literally the next morning we were putting him on a flight. And then like it was, signing paperwork to make sure we could use his likeness. And we sold t-shirts, we did everything. Like we basically gave this guy his 15 minutes of fame in 15 minutes. Like that's how long it took for us to figure it out.
Made a commercial.
Yeah, and we put him in a TV, we whipped that commercial up on Monday morning, literally taking the highlights from the game, running it through Fox for approval, and it aired Tuesday night. And then we ran a new one Wednesday night for when they won the World Series. So like, it was fun for us. It's like, it didn't cost us a lot, like, but the ability for us to move quick enough, like, that's the one thing that, there was an article in one of our trade publications was like, we're good at this. I don't know that anybody else is. Like, and it sounds egotistic, but like, this is what like we don't plan for, and we have the freedom to do. Like, we can do all of this, and and get some good PR and make a good TV commercial. But then like he was in the parade on a float. Like he was a part of like, we put that guy everywhere. Like we put that guy everywhere. So he was on the float, all the players, and then the next bus is this guy. So like I think it just becomes like
not only that, he was more popular than the players.
100%.
The parade, the fans were walking by the players and trying to like get pictures taken with the Save the Beer guy.
And we sold 800 shirts with this guy on it. So like it's just like, the fun part is that like this was easy and it's fun, but like the reality is we also know is like it's dead. Like it was fun for a week and it worked well, and like Z and these guys, when it comes back to opening day, we'll probably take them on a bar tour and like, have them come to the bar and meet this guy. Like, but I think it's just, we know like how to extend it to a point. But once the season starts, this whole thing ends. And but it's good because at the time that it mattered, we were quick and ready to go. So
yeah. There was, I think, it was Heineken had a commercial a couple of years ago where I think he had 2 draft beers. He didn't have cans, and it was a foul ball, and the vendor was telling the fan to drop the beer, and the fan wouldn't, because I think it was all part of, it's all about the beer.
Yeah.
Was that Heineken?
Yeah, that was Heineken.
Yeah, and then it happened in real life.
Well, look, and I think
with a home run by a home team player, right? It was Soto who hit that?
Yeah, it was, no, this was wasn't as Astros. I think it was
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Bergman, maybe? Or-
Bergman or something.
Right, and he didn't throw the ball back.
He didn't. Well, he didn't catch it. But
Well, he did pick up the ball.
he picked it up. They gave it
with
to
beer
him.
on his hand.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy. One of the crazy requests he had, he didn't ask for money, he didn't, or anything. He wanted us to help him authenticate the ball. Like, that's the one thing he wanted, was like us to get it authenticated. So it's a weird request.
And we
but,
bought him
like,
dinner after the parade.
Yeah, we bought
That
him
was about
dinner,
it.
and we sent him down to Houston, and he had a ball. So
So that's part of the lesson today, is that Anheuser-Busch is extending its business by selling refrigerators, T-shirts, glasses.
I run our licensing department too, so like I'm selling everything. So
Yeah, terrific. And so the bottom line on all this, if he has a Coors Light in each hand, or maybe a Coors Light and a Miller Lite in the other hand, it just goes away.
It does. I mean, I think that honestly, if he was holding, I mean, to be perfectly honest, if it was like a Bud Light and a Coors Light, and it wasn't just us, like, I don't know that we react the same way. The other part is too, is like, he's got like label out, like it's the best thing we could possibly have. Like, it's just like, it's a perfect world.
I thought he almost moved a little bit to take it.
It looks like he took
Like
it
he
in
was
chest.
gonna say, like, I don't want I want it to hit me in a place that's not going to hurt so much. Right.
Well, and that was like the first question we had when we talked to him. Was like, "Are you okay?" 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, it was just like we didn't want to be associated if he was injured. So
Right.
it's just like.
And it was glad it wasn't a little old lady
I know.
who got hit.
Well, and the one question, honestly, our legal team had was just like, is it responsible for him to have 2 beers? So like that was the question. So like, because he has 2, and they're 25 ounces apiece, so it's not a little.
I think one was for a friend, right?
Yeah, so I think the friend he was there with, he brought to Houston. So like we keep telling the stories for a friend, but he felt obligated the whole time he was in Houston to have 2 beers in his hands at all times. So like, it's just like,
The whole parade, he had 2 beers in his hand the
That's
whole
the
parade.
thing.
Well, he's a good guy for
Yeah.
doing that, I'm sure. We're just about out of time here. Might have time for a question if somebody's been holding back. Oh, we have a few questions here. Let's see what we can do there. Go ahead, Nick.
So with you guys having so much product lines with different brands, it has to really do with Bud Light Platinum, but how do you guys research the marketing, how to stay away from cannibalization?
That's a good question. We are actually now more so than ever actually like going with more portfolio approach. So what you'll see from us, instead of just Bud Light with the Eagles in the future, like this year we had our Goose Island group came up with a Fly PA. Like a year ago, we would have let that happen internally, never have let it happen. But now we're much more receptive to the idea of our whole portfolio being active, because that's what consumers want. They're not just drinking Bud Light. So for us, it's as long as we're like owning the drinking occasion within the sport and it's all our brands, we're comfortable. And then I think that we have the uniqueness of we can go into a partnership and offer every style, every category you can imagine.
There's another question there? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. With ABI, you guys have a big awareness for social conscious impact with your sponsorships. So, like that being the sponsorship with women's soccer in the U.S. Canada just recently launched it with the Women's Hockey League. So, I'm just wondering, how do you guys relate that to the sales and stores?
I mean, look, we don't. I mean, I think it's to be perfectly realistic, like it's just the right thing for us to be doing. Like we invest hundreds of millions of dollars into the big sports that everybody else does, but like, we almost have a duty to make sure that there's other opportunities out there for WNBA, the Women's Soccer League, Women's Hockey League, like who aren't getting the same level of support. We need to be there. Like we're doing so much so that like I'm selling sponsorships for the NWSL right now as like a part-time job. Like that literally we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And it's, it doesn't, help us sell more beer, not necessarily, but it helps us connect also with another fan that like isn't necessarily watching the NFL. Like that women's soccer fan is very unique in the fact that like they may just watch women's soccer because they played as a kid or they look up to the women that are participants. But like, yeah, it's not necessarily helping us on the bottom line, but we'll be there because it's the right thing to do. So.
Go ahead.
How do you choose to activate when it's like dull, not much is going on? Like there's a lot of times where you have a situation that you activate on, but when it's kind of just nothing's going on, how do you choose to do that?
I'll kick this Z. We have to. I mean, I think we pay so much, and like it could be. Baseball is a prime example. There's 160 games. Like it's really hard to activate. We're never activating 80 home games. This is not realistic. But we can still activate the bars. We can still activate the restaurants. Like everything else at retail. We have to find different routes and levers to pull besides like what we would do around a playoff run or an opening day or something like that.
I think the team now, based on our learnings from all this stuff, we're constantly looking for opportunities to exploit or to amplify You know, there's examples like the Bears lost last year when a football got kicked in a regular season game, or it was the playoffs maybe. It
To
hit
the
both,
Eagles.
the double doink. It hit both things. Like immediately, our Goose Island folks, they released a challenge that if anybody could come down to the brewery and kick that same field goal, that they'd get free Goose Island for a year. And it snowed that day. It turned out with consumers just slipping and falling, and you know, but huge. Like again, same impressions that a Super Bowl commercial would get us. So it's boring, dull, a normal play, and we're able to turn it into something. So we're constantly, like my regional marketing team, which is now, like their challenge is try to come up with these moments that we can turn into earned media, that we can leverage big time impressions and PR that fit with the brand. And we have a formula for it, and we're actively trying to make something out of nothing that's there.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.